teachers of Reddit, what the worst thing that happened on a school trip? I'm an English teacher and career and field trips are different here. Usually, there are no additional chaperones. The teacher is responsible for all 25-ish students in their homeroom class during the trip. That means a field trip is often 8 classes of 25 students, 200 kids, and a maximum of 10 chaperones if some office staff get taken along. One of my first trips was to a large traditional market. It's a popular place to go, and there are usually thousands of people there at all times. Our buses arrived, and we all piled off in the parking lot. The kids were told via megaphone, "Be back here in 1 hour. Go." And all 200 of them scattered into the crowds and tents, while most of the teachers got back onto the buses to have coffee. Surprisingly, 99% of the kids were back on the buses when they were supposed to be. However, a good number had bought small hamsters, turtles, or goldfish. 2 weeks later I couldn't find a single kid whose spontaneous pet was still alive. I feel bad for all the animals that were being peddled in that market. Of course they will die. What happened with the 1% of students who weren't back in time? I went on a class trip as chaperone to a science center. I was in charge of a group of 8 boys. One of them goes missing. I ask the others where he went, and they don't know either. He's missing for about 10 minutes until a security guard from the center comes up to me with him. The guy asks, "Is he one of yours?" and tells this kid to open his backpack. When I say yes, probably $200 worth of stolen stuff in there. He spent the rest of the trip right next to me. Did he rob the gift shop or something? Sure did. His look of terror was kind of hilarious, to be honest. $200 in a gift shop. That's almost a whole pack of gum. Nah, that's at least 2, possibly even 3, of those freeze-dried astronaut ice creams. I remember a story of my former religious education teacher. Don't know if it's the worst, but definitely funny. She, naively, went on a trip to Amsterdam with the graduation class. They told her it was because of the Anne Frank Museum and she believed it, which is pretty cute. The hotel, especially stairs and elevator, was plastered with the end of joints. Well, the 2 teachers spent their evenings with the attempt to kick the ends into the gap between elevator and door, so the students at least wouldn't try to smoke that. The 2 teachers spent their evenings with the attempt to kick the ends into the gap between elevator and door. The funny part is they apparently couldn't just pick them up and throw them away. If I remember correctly, they were grossed out, and I totally understand. This wouldn't be my favorite thing to do either, especially without gloves. Logic is probably kids can fish things out of the trash. It's much harder to retrieve things from the bottom of the elevator shaft. Not a teacher, but a younger relative of mine ruined her middle school's field trip. She didn't want to be grouped with the poor kids, so she threw trash at them in front of the person who ran the place they visited. She was unrepentant and kept calling the group grease as their supposed unkemptness. She was taken back to school, no refund, and had to write a letter of apology. She refused to do that and instead harassed them on Facebook. She was expelled, and there was no refund on the tuition. Her parents had a hard time getting her into another school. She was accepted in a public school, but that was another shit show. I'm glad to hear the school had a proper response. So your cousin is the cash me outside girl. Was her name Cherry Valance? Cherry would never do that. I'd like to hear the other shit show too. What is wrong with that child? I'm a student, but at our school trip 2 teachers had an affair. People found out 2 years later, and they are still going strong lol. Another teacher mysteriously birthed a child 9 months after another school trip with my sister's class. The father was another teacher that was on the trip as well. I live in a small town, and rumors travel fast. Father was another teacher who, boy, for a second I thought that was about to end up a lot sketchier than it did. Him in the same boat as the affair situation. 2 teachers in my middle school were always super close and never seemed to be apart. They would also frequently leave the male teacher's office on multiple occasions in the middle of the day. Then they got married a year later. Here's the kicker. They were both already married. Neither were divorced until the year they married. I was a new teacher when the whole grade went on a field trip during the first week of school. In fact, I was so new that nobody, not even my colleagues, noticed that I wasn't on the bus. So it left without me. Fortunately, the destination was only about 15 minutes away, so it wasn't a big deal for me to jump in my car and follow the bus there. Probably cold went for coffee and said you were there the whole time. Could have just not gone and said nobody noticed you were there. I was a student when something similar happened. My brother drove me to the venue. I can imagine one of the kids going, "Where'd Mr. Big Dude go?" That's Mr. Big Dude to them. If I could, you would get some Reddit would. I would probably prefer that anyway. Group trip to take a tour of a college campus. We had a young man jump out of a bus window while it was going down the highway. His long-term girlfriend had broken up with him a few days before, and he later explained that he didn't see the point of going on the college visit anymore because he didn't want to go to the same college as her or even apply to the same ones. Denied up and down that it was a suicide attempt. His friends circled the wagons and supported his story, and the story rumors died quickly. He got some gnarly road rash, but avoided being hit by any cars. I always got the impression that it was, in fact, a suicide attempt. If he didn't want to go on the tour, why go at all? Why board the bus? He could have stayed at school. This was several years ago. He is fine. Not a teacher, but some girl licked a public bus's carpet for 50p on a school trip. Yes, I was the one who told her to do it, and I still have the video. For those wanting the video, I'd have to ask for her consent, and it had revealing information about me and some of my friends' personal info that we'd rather not have public names, location of residence. I just put a comment saying I'd post it, but I like my privacy and don't want my name or face on the internet. I licked the ground at Magic Kingdom for $1 when we were there to do the parade in HS. Kids are weird. Yeah, especially when money's involved. I ate a dog biscuit on a dare on a class trip, not one of the small ones either, like one of the big milk bones. Did I mention this was my senior class trip? Asked my students to be respectful of other pedestrians while on the trip because some people want to enjoy the nature center by themselves. One kid saw a woman with her service dog and tried to pull on it because mommy would let me have it. We had to leave because of that, and he ruined the entire trip for everyone. This is why you don't spoil kids. Don't care how, I want it now. And I suppose you want the whole world, don't you, Violet? It was Veruca Salt. Violet was the one who became a giant blueberry, just an FYI. You're turning violet, Violet. Our unexpected Willy Wonka. How old was the kid? Mommy would let me have it, I bet she would, smack. There. As a student, I was left behind at a Hutterite colony. I went to use the outhouse and the bus left. What was it like growing up as a Hutterite? They should have done a head count. Final count is within ±10% of the initial one. Close enough. Thank goodness for those permission slips. Does Noon use the buddy system anymore? This is the exact reason I do head counts like 15 times before we leave, and everyone has a buddy they have to check for. My biggest fear is leaving a kid behind. I missed that field trip because I had the worst flu I had ever had in my entire life. Ah, I see you are a man of culture. This happened just the other week. We had left the school about 5 minutes before on the bus when a student got my attention and said, "Miss, someone hit a girl in the head with a bottle and she's crying." I think here we go, and head down the back to settle them down. I get there, students all looking on and crowding on, and sure enough, the girl is in tears and is holding her hand against her head. I ask, "Are you okay?" And she pulled her hand away from her head, and it was gushing blood. We turned the bus around, and she ended up going to hospital. Long story short, head wounds bleed a lot. 12-year-olds make bad decisions, and everyone was okay in the end. Can't say I felt overly prepared for that though. You know how it goes. 2 or 3 go missing, and suddenly you're irresponsible and criminally liable. I don't know why anyone would get into the profession. All our district's trips mandate at least one male chaperone for issues just like this. I run funification field trips and have to agree, it's insanely stressful. Though I take humor in it by quoting Simpsons, the buddy system never fails. It's a job where, if you make a mistake, it could end a career or worse, and you've got 8 to 16 people all trying to get you to make a mistake. And let me tell you, once a child starts acting up we get 5 or 6 onlookers whipping out their phones to record what we do. A girl on a beta club trip thought it would be funny to put bomb on board in the window of the bus. The interstate was shut down, the bus was pulled over, and SWAT team raided the bus. The bomb squad was called in to sweep the bus, even though the girl admitted it was a hoax. She didn't go to jail somehow. She was also a popular cheerleader and didn't get any disciplinary action from the school. Shoulder gotten shot in the toe. Teach her a lesson. I have the toes I have. Shoulder gotten shot in the toe. Bacuda? She was also a popular cheerleader. I think I figured out that somehow, chief. We went skating, and one of the students fell, smacked her chin off the ice, and somehow got a skate blade to the face. She needed a bunch of stitches, and was able to stick her tongue through the hole in her face. That's just her mouth, silly goose. That's just her mouth. Whoa, back up the truck with your medical mumbo jumbo. Document. Her what now? We ain't scientists, doc. That's just her mouth. Once took the Model UN club out on a trip. All girls for some reason. The other teacher took the girls in, while I waited outside for the stragglers. When I come into the building I see the whole group walk in a door, and catch up with them. Turns out that door was the entrance to the girls' bathroom. I'm a guy. Managed to stop myself about a foot in, when I realized and avoided a major debacle lol.